Okay, so I'm going to be playing a House Divided next. I was considering and hoping to move to Burma, but I'm still working my way through the rules for the second time. I'm about halfway through the base rules, so I figured getting something light out of the way would be fun anyway. Burma's going to take me a while, I'm assuming, to actually play. All right, so this is it's a game that somehow reached a classic status, I guess. Uh, Even though, I don't know, when I first saw it advertised in the magazines, I thought, wow, way too light a game. I'm interested in the topic. Might be cool. It had some kind of neat sounding things in the blurbs about it. But I would always say, I'd look at that picture and they had a space for soda and chips in the layout for the game itself. And I said to myself, something that takes those into consideration probably is just two beer and pretzels for my taste. But I managed to pick up a copy used of the old game. And, I've played Soldier King before, and it's a very similar system to what Soldier King uses. So, and I kind of liked that. So I decided to give this a shot eventually, since I could get it reasonably cheap. American Civil War, Countermix Limited, by a couple of factors. One is the Army maximum size, but another is the amount of militia you can have on the board. Right now, both sides have all their militia on the board, so until they either get them killed or are able to promote them, and that's one of the cool things in the game, is you're able to actually promote units in combat or just through training from militia, which have a 2 combat factor for infantry at least, to veterans, which have a 3, to cracks, which have a 3, but they also have a couple special rules, increased movement and improved defensive positioning in battles. Movement, you roll dice for movement. Yeah. That's how many spaces you're allowed to move, though, or how many spaces you're allowed to move from, as it were. So that's kind of an interesting factor. This was also the first game that I'm aware of where the sort of point-to-point system of movement was really popular. I'm not sure if something else may have come up with this beforehand, but it definitely added a lot to the hobby as a whole. Providing a strategic level game at the level of like an Axis and Allies or something, which it kind of does. Rules are light, easy, not a terribly legalese type format, which would normally be a negative for me. But when rules are this light, you don't need that, and I'm perfectly happy with them at this level. They're well written. I'm going to be playing with all the advanced and optional rules, which doesn't add a lot to the game. It makes battles take multiple days where you're tracking and keeping track of command levels and stuff like that. So it gets a little bit more than, say, an Axis and Allies level, but not much. What I'm not doing is, along with my copy, this from Battle Plan Magazine, is a set of increased complexity rules, more leaders, a bunch of special little optional rules. If I want to play something, I mean, I may give it a shot someday, but if I want to play something taking that much into consideration, I think I'll go play Victory Games Civil War instead of this, because quite frankly, once you start adding too much onto a very simple system, you have some problems. We got 3 different kinds of movement between boxes. Roads, which are the dark lines, railroads, which if you control, you get speeded movement, and rivers, which are primarily for the Union movement. 2 different types of units, infantry and cav. Cav are worse in combat, have some movement advantages though. In general, you won't want to be building cav particularly. The rivers are kind of weird. You see the dark blue line. That indicates having to attack across the river, which will give the defender an advantage on their shot, first couple shots. If this were a much more detailed game, that would be really unappealing to me because, so look at Vicksburg. Well, next to Vicksburg, the other side cannot defend the river line at all. That just kind of disturbs me. But, on something this level, no big deal. Mountains don't seem to have much effect, except there's not a lot of railroads. And with the advanced rules and supply, that's actually a big deal because the Confederates can't really launch a major attack down through the mountain region. They need the railroads in order to trace their supply. You got naval movement for the Union. There's special leaders, just 3 of them, Grant, Sherman, and Lee, which give bonuses in combat. And, I think that's about it. The advanced games add morale rules, which basically in the middle of a combat you can be forced to be disordered or rout or whatever, which is kind of cool. Not disordered, but it takes you out of the combat briefly. So it should be fun. Hopefully I'll have internet again soon so I can load things up.